Hello beauties, and welcome back to the Bumpy Bones Locksport channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at a lock that has some controversy around it. It is the Proven Industries puck lock. And if you're not aware of currently what's going on with Proven Industries is currently suing McNally for defamation and copyright infringement, I believe. And what happened in one of Proven Industries videos, they were talking about how you couldn't break off their hitch lock version of this lock. And someone did the McNally poke, and they replied to the McNally poke saying that McNally edited his videos. Which of course I think is a challenge. They threw down the gauntlet with that comment, and McNally uploaded a video of himself watching that same video and then proceeding to shim open the hitch version of this lock with a soda can. And so Proven Industries didn't like that, so they are currently suing him for defamation and copyright infringement, and it's kind of unclear exactly what they're trying to do. I read through their legal documentation, and they're all over the place with it. They talk about the video, but then they say later in the documentation, even if that wasn't there, it would still be considered this. And you know, I don't think they really have a leg to stand on with it. I actually recommend Runkle of The Bailey did a really good legal review of their lawsuit, and I highly recommend people go and check it out. I will throw a link to his video in the description of my video here. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get my hands on the lock. Now, I didn't get the hitch version of the lock because it's kind of hard to get a hold of right now. I think Proven Industries kind of pulled it from market for a little bit, and it's also very expensive. So I got the puck version of the same lock. It's the same keyway that McNally used. The only difference between this lock and the hitch version is this has an aluminum body and it's a puck lock. The other is solid steel, but to get a steel version of this lock is extremely expensive. So what we're going to do in today's video is I'm going to do an overall review of this lock. Now, I'm not going to pick this lock open in today's video because it is a disc detainer, and I'm not experienced in disc detainer picking yet. I have yet to get a disc detainer lock open. I've got the disc detainer pick that was a collaboration between Sparrows and Ozzy and Bill and Lockpicking Lawyer, and I love this pick. I think it's a beautiful pick. But I'm just not experienced enough in picking disc detainers yet. So I'm hoping at some point in the future to actually have a video of me picking this guy open. Georgia Jim has a really good video where he picked not only the disc detainer version of this lock open, but also the tubular version of this lock open. And what we're also going to do is actually try the shim attack, and I'm going to talk, do that, show it working, and then we will talk about why that works on this lock. So let's go ahead and get started here. So this detainer lock I got off of Amazon for $90. On the Proven Industries stores, it goes for $100. And the other comment I would say about this, I'm not going to do videos like this a lot when there's a lot of controversies or companies like Proven Industries. The way Proven Industries has been responding to this controversy has been very much in a bullying manner, and I do not want to support bullies. I never do. It's just something that I don't want to support. However, given the controversy, given the stuff around this lock, I just had to get my hands on it. So I bought the cheapest version of it that I could get my hands on. And that was on Amazon for $90. And it came with a mount, so the storage door mount, and I'll show that off a little bit later because we'll talk about the mount and all of that. So, again, I'll talk about, what I like about the lock, what I don't like about the lock, and some of the issues with this lock as well. But first, before we even open it, let's do the shim attack here. So I've got my soda can kind of already pre-cut here. And I've done this a couple of times, so in full disclosure, I have taken the lock apart. I have done the shim attack and done it successfully 3 or 4 times at this point. But I'm still nowhere near an expert like McNally is. McNally, he can do this back to back, no problem. He knows where to apply the force. He knows how to torque. The guy's exceptionally precise. He's a master at what he does. In comparison, I'm a monkey smashing my banana against the lock in some ways. And yes, I know McNally did a video with him using a banana to open a lock. I should give that a try at some point. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut our shim here. So I've got my scissors. And so I'm going to go ahead and just cut off a sliver of our can here. Now, the other thing that I should mention here is aluminum in aluminum cans is extremely soft and extremely brittle, and you can actually rip this with your hand. And so in my experience when I was doing this, a majority of the time the shim actually ripped, and you want to be careful with this because you can easily cut yourself nicely with the aluminum here. So what I have been having a hard time with is cutting this smoothly, because any little nick on the side here is going to cause it to rip. All right, so we want to round off the top of our shim. All right, so there we go. And now we want to cut in the hook, because what we're going to do is we're going to insert this in, wrap it around, hit the latch that's right about here, and then shim our latch open. So I want to go ahead and cut out my... And this is where I have the hard time. I'm a righty, and so cutting out the shim or the hook is a bit challenging for me in a manner where I'm not going to have a rip that's going to cause the shim to rip while I'm doing this. So you can see, if you look really closely there, you see that little cut there? That's going to cause that to rip. And so I want to see if I can cut that out so that that's all smooth. All right. I still think that's going to be a little bit of a risk. Because again, I can take our can here and with my hand, actually this might be a little bit too small. I love it when I go to try to demonstrate something and all that, so let's go with a bit of a bigger piece here. With my hand, I can rip this can by hand. So any little nick that you have there is going to cause that to deform or potentially rip and all that. All right, so let's go ahead and get this in here. So what we're going to do is on the top of the lock, or when we're holding it and looking at the latch here, we're going to put it in right here. Now what we're doing with the shim is we're actually targeting between the housing and the body. So you'll notice that there's this rim that holds the core in place. So we're actually going for the spot between the housing and our lock body here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of work my way in there. And so you can see the shim fits beautifully in here. I mean, it slides in really nicely. So we're going to rotate that over until our latch is seated. And so I think we're pretty well seated there. All right, and we're going to give it just a few pumps. And hopefully I can get this on the first attempt. And not on the first attempt, because as you can see, our shim ripped. And so I now need to open this up, see if I can get that piece of metal out. There we go. Let's try that again. Let's see if we can cut that a little bit better. And again, this is where, just the difference in experience and skill comes in, because I have done this. So we're going to go ahead and just cut out another shim. I got a little bit of a nick on that side, so I want to smooth that out. Let's round out our top here. All right. And actually what I'm going to do is switch over here, go left, and see if I can cut it out a little bit better with my left hand. Nope. All right. Can't cut with the left hand. But that might actually be a bit better. That may not rip as much. So let's go ahead and give this another try. We're going to go ahead and insert our shim. We're going to rotate, get it behind that latch, give it a few pumps. Aha! And there we go. So my second attempt worked just fine. But you can see, again, the aluminum shim is very brittle. And actually this one I'm having a harder time ripping. But if I make a little cut on that, you can easily rip apart your shim and all that. So the cutting does have to be smooth, but your measurements don't need to be precise. And let's go ahead and gut this lock, or gut it as far as we can, because I'm not going to actually gut the disc detainer on it, but let's go ahead and remove the core and see why we can do this. So let me grab a Allen wrench here, and that's not the Allen wrench. Here it is. All right. So I got my Allen wrench here. So we're going to loosen this grub screw here, or the retaining screw here, and we can easily pull out the core. Now, here's what I like about this lock. You can get different coring options for this lock. So this lock came with their disc detainer. There's also a tubular lock that you can use. Now I got this from Covert Instruments, but I can actually put this lock in here because it uses the same core as a vending machine. And so being able to replace the cores on this are super easy, and you can get a core for this lock that you can't shim. The reason why we can shim this open is on the tubular core and their disc detainer core, the latch here is a free spring, and so you can see without the key I can press this in. Even on my tubular lock here, I can press this in with no problem. So if we can access this latch, we can shim it open. And they do sell a medical M3, and I think there's also an alloy core that they sell as well at a premium rate that you can't push in the spring without unlocking it first. But as we'll talk about a little bit later in this video with the cost of it, that's a premium core, that's an additional cost. And when they mentioned the cost of them, I think they were about the same cost as the lock. And so when we're talking about my cost analysis of this lock, that's going to add up really, really fast. But again, what's really nice about this is that, I can go ahead and, let me grab my Allen wrench here, push out this core, because here's our disc detainer core, and I can just insert this tubular lock here. And now I've got my tubular lock here, I can now throw in here and it will work just fine and all that. And so again, I can go through, remove this, and we can put our disc detainer lock back in here. And so you can see it is a nice quick thing. Here's the thing though, with convenience comes sacrifices in security. And also the way that they designed this housing here causes another issue. So if we take a look at our tubular core here, you'll notice that even though that this is a free spring here, there's a ledge at the end there. So, and this is where the shim placement kind of became important. So if I'm shimming right along the core here and I latch behind that, that's a flat surface. So when I go to pull the shim, it's not going to be easy for me to shim. I can still do it if I use enough force or I wiggle it, or if I can get that shim up to the angle here, it would still allow me to shim it, but it's going to be a lot harder if I have that ledge there. However, if we look at the lock in with the housing here, we don't have that ledge. This housing is thick enough that it brings it right up to that angle. And so when we're doing our shim attack, we're already on a slope, which makes shimming so much easier. So if I had a shim that was made out of a better metal with aluminum, it would give me a higher success rate, because then the shim wouldn't be ripping as much. And just to kind of give an idea on the thickness here, how thick is our shim here? We're looking at 0.09 millimeters. And in comparison with the decoder from, the thinner decoder from Cobra Instruments, we're at 0.15 millimeters. And actually, I can insert this in there. So in terms of their tolerance, you have a 0.15 millimeter gap that you can fit a shim in. Now, I mean, they've released videos, and this is, again, the practice of Proven Industries lately, I just have not liked. In response to this controversy, they released videos saying, "Oh, you can't do it. Our tolerances are too tight for that." Well, as you could just see, I did it, and it just kind of ripped my shim, the hook off of my shim, and all that. You know, I don't know how they could do a redesign that could prevent that shimming with this core. Probably the best thing for them to try, with it is getting a core that had that little flat piece there. That, if we had a little platform there, that would make shimming a little bit hard. I'm looking at this housing. I can't think of anything else. I mean, of course, the big thing would be to prevent that spring or the latch from being pushed in without the key. But again, convenience. For convenience, you lose security. I can now put this in here without the key, which is convenient, but I'm losing security again. So let's go ahead and throw this back in here. Assembling it actually is pretty easy. You do that. You got to make sure that this is aligned properly first. There we go, and we can push that in. The lock itself operates pretty smoothly. And, the one thing that I will say about, with security is in the States, I don't see a lot of disc detainers. In disc detainers, you need a special pick for. I mean, you could use a ball pick to pick disc detainers, but you'd often want like an actual disc detainer pick. And it's a whole different mindset than the pin tumblers because you're rotating picks to a sidebar. It's a very different feel. So, you would need to be more experienced in Locksport and lockpicking. I feel, to kind of go after this, or have disc detainers be more common in your area, which in the States, I don't see disc detainers locks a lot. So, I will give them +1 on that security. However, this is a aluminum lock. Again, this cost me $90. If I wanted the solid steel version of this lock, it would be an additional $75. So that would be $165 if I wanted the same lock but with the steel billet body, which is expensive. I mean, in comparison, when you're looking at, like, say, the Master Lock M736 here, this is solid steel. I mean, it's a pin tumbler lock, but you can't shim it. And this was $43. Or $34, I can't remember. I mean, it's half the price of this. And this came with a mount, too. And that's why when I'm doing my comparison here, I'm looking at the mount as well because, when we compare it to the Master Lock here, it has a mount that comes in with it as well. But other than that, there's really nothing special about this lock. The mount is nice. So this is the mount that came with it. And I do want to say that the mount itself is actually quite nice. I like it. I like the powdered feel to it. I love the fact that they put a holder for the lock here. And it fits in here pretty nicely. So, you can, get your lock in here. This is the horizontal. They do have a vertical option for it. And, the mount itself is good. Now, of course, the mount is only as strong as the brackets that you use and the door that you put it on and all that. But, that's a good, well-constructed, the welds are nice and all that. But it's, again, comparable to the one that, Master Lock has. So this is the one that came with the Master Lock M36, or 736 here. And, it's comparable. It's the same size. The shaping of this is a little bit different. It's a little bit easier accessing the keyway with the Master Lock one than the Proven Industries. I think this is a little bit more restrictive, which is kind of good. But again, when we're going through and inserting our key, it doesn't give me a lot of space in here and all that. And I know this is not mounted on a door, and I know when I did my shimming, I did that freehand, which when you do this in the mount here, it is a bit different. However, if you can do it in hand, you can do it here. It doesn't, just because it's on a mount does not mean that inside itself would defeat the shim attack. Because guess what? You still have plenty of space around your keyway here to access. So, we've got that we need to consider with it as well. And, when I'm looking at the keyway here again, you have a lot of space here. So again, this is 0.15 millimeters. I can insert this shim in here and work around it. Now, if I take the other decoder, which is thicker, this guy is, let's see here, how thick is this guy? This is 0.25 millimeters. Yeah, I can get it in there, but it is very tight. That's about as far in as I can get it. So, you do need to have, a shim that's the proper size here. But, again, it's shimmable. We did it here on our video. So, we're looking at for the equivalent of the Master Lock, solid steel body. This is 165. If you could get it on Amazon, if you got it through their site, you add $10 because it's $100 with the hasp and all that. So then $75 on top of that for the solid steel. So that's now 175. This guy was between 30 and 40 bucks with the kit, and you can't shim it. Granted, it's a pin tumbler. But again, this is a green belt. It's a little bit different because, it's actually a tighter keyway. I would rank this a more difficult green belt just because for me, when I was learning to pick this guy, I was having a hard time because of the tight keyway. I had to grab my thinner picks in order to do it. And this guy gave me a lot of problems. It took me a little bit to be able to pick this guy, but I can't shim it. With this guy, it's shimmable. Granted, you have a disc detainer, but, experienced pickers have been able to pick this pretty easily. And it's $175. In comparison, if we take a look at our Abus 8840 here, this is a very similar disc detainer lock. This guy is $34. So I'm having a hard time justifying over $100 difference just for a disc detainer versus a pin tumbler. To me, that doesn't equate. it's not worth it. I would go with this over this any day. Um, so that's just my opinion. Again, I'm not a expert lockpicker. I'm not an expert locksmith. I do this as a hobby. I've been in this sport for a year and a half. I currently have my blue belt. I am working on my purple belt. I actually just picked my second purple belt lock, which is why I have the lock breaker chip out here. I still have to record my second purple belt video. I'm not sure I'm going to use the lock I defeated because I made a mistake when I picked it. I over-rotated the cord and it dropped all the security pins into the keyway, and it was a pain in the butt to get back together. And so I think I'm going to try for another purple belt level lock in order to qualify for my purple belt. But I'm progressing, which is an amazing feeling and all that. But this is just my opinion as a middle-ish lock sporter, lock picker, and all that. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. As always, do feel free to like and comment on my video and subscribe to my channel. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I will see you all later.